Anyway, tonight I want to talk about charging systems. So we're going to start out. We're not going to start with the pre-war cars and the three-wire generators because I think only three people on tonight have that. Instead, we're going to start with the RB340 or that type of regulator that goes with the generator from really post World War II. So there are four parts in the charging system. There's the battery, the generator, or the dynamo. There's no difference between those, except if you're going to pay 250 bucks for one, it's probably a dynamo. It's like the difference between noodles and pasta. Then the control box, which controls the rate of charge, and the associated wiring. So there are only four things in the system: the battery, the generator, the control box, and the wiring. And whatever problem you're having with your charging system is going to lie in one of those. Remember, the battery has three functions. Its main one is to have enough energy in it to spin the starter motor over. And the starter motor, the duty cycle on the starter motor is probably, oh, I don't know, 20 seconds with a break because they'll get warm. Usually your car starts before that, but you've got to have a lot of energy there. Batteries are now rated in cold cranking amps. They used to be rated in amp hours. But the cold cranking amps is better. It'll tell you how many amps it'll put out. But to spin over a moderately cool MG, you're going to need 150 amps, and that's a lot of energy to send out away from the battery to get that starter motor going. And in so doing, it depletes the amount of energy that's in the battery because the energy is moved up to the starter motor. The battery also stabilizes the voltage in the system, keeps it from fluttering up and down, just like a water tower does in a municipal water system. And then the other thing that it does is provide electricity when the car is down at idle. It's not the generator isn't making anything under 1,000 RPM, or if it is, it's just not enough to keep the car going, to keep the fuel pump operating, the points working, the blower motor going, the wipers going, the brake lights on, and the turn signals, and maybe the radio. So you get down below a certain RPM, and the generator just won't put out enough electricity, so the battery makes up for that. In the process of all this, the battery gets depleted and has to get refilled with electricity. It's got 80 amp hours in it. So if you charge the battery at 1 amp, it'll take 80 hours to fill an empty battery. Or if you jack it up to 80 amps, it'll wreck the battery. It'll only take 1 hour to charge the battery. That's why jumping and fast charging just isn't good. The battery is the most oversold part of the car. Batteries last forever, especially in our cars, as long as they're kept up to charge. If you let them go flat, and they freeze, so of course they're junk. But you want to keep the battery at a reasonable state of charge, and the battery will last you a long time. So you've got a generator. I happen to have an example here. So here's the inside of the generator. Okay, and you got the commutator. That's this part that turns, and you've got little tiny segments down here at the bottom. You can see the copper segments and two brushes. One brush is ground. One brush is attached to the D terminal on the outside of the unit, which stands for dynamo. Okay, so those are two connections, ground and D. And then there's a case that this whole thing fits in. This thing's pretty heavy. And this has got a pole, a wire wound pole at the top and bottom. They're fabric covered. Maybe you can see them better from this end. And they're wound in series so that when you put electricity into this terminal here at the end, it goes through the windings and then comes up and grounds right underneath that. So on the inside of here, you probably can't see it, but there's a ground wire underneath there, and there's also a wire that goes from the spade through the windings. And this then sets up one of these is north and south or north and south. It just depends on whether it's polarized positive or negative earth. So the generator's pretty simple. It's pretty stupid. It makes electricity. It makes electricity off these brushes, but the rate at which it makes the electricity is controlled by the control box. I happen to have an example of that. So here's the control box. This is the 5 post, not the 9 post, but the 5 post. And on the inside of this guy, we've got two relays. Two relays. The one on your right is the cutout here. That's a real dangerous one if you are fiddling around with your control box. The car's off and you take the cover off and you're sort of pushing you. So oh, look at these guys, these little things here at the top. They move up and down. This one opens points, this one closes points. If you move this one while the car is off, it'll jam shut, and the electricity from the battery will quickly, instantly begin to burn up your generator. So do not fiddle with this um, uh, with the cover off, with an engine not running. There are two screws in the back that adjust your voltage and your cutout. So the cutout is the first elementary part of the control box that separates the generator from the battery. And once the voltage comes up to about 12 volts or so, this closes and stays closed for the duration. Then the other one over here on this side, and this is as old as MGs get. There's always a cutout, has to be a cutout, because if you forgot to flip the switch, your generator burns up. Then over on this side is the voltage regulator, and that regulates the voltage that comes out of the generator. And nominally, on all of our cars, when you're running at 1500 RPM with the headlights on, you should get a voltage of around 14 volts. It's a little higher than battery voltage. Battery voltage is really 13.2. That's why they call it a 12-volt battery, I guess. Anyways, 13.2, and that extra zero point 0.8 volts is just enough to trickle electricity back into the battery. And for how long it does that is controlled by the control box. So on the earlier cars, the TC and TD and TF, they got an ammeter, which is superfluous. You don't need an ammeter. You've got an ignition warning light. That tells you everything you need to know. But it's a leftover from before. And later Triumphs went to a voltmeter, a lot safer, rather than having all that electricity available right to you, right behind the dash. Oh my gosh. That's if you have a wiring problem, oh my gosh, stuff burns up real fast. Voltmeters are a whole lot safer. Absolutely. Of course, they're not original, so you can't replace your ammeter with a voltmeter. But anyway, this guy works really well. You see this extra little winding here. That's the current regulator. It's just a half a winding on the voltage regulator. It's the current regulator, an attempt at current regulation. Because without it, if this guy's charging it at full rate, he'll get so hot that the solder will melt here on the commutator. It'll melt, and you get solder that gets thrown out on the inside on the field windings, and then the commutator is scrapped. And it's really difficult to find anybody to resolder, rewind an armature now. Used to be when I started off 50 years ago, there was an armature shop or engine or a starter generator rebuild shop right in your hometown. They did everything. They had little machines to wind all this stuff, and it's all gone. So in 1963, when they brought out the MGB, then they went to the three bobbin control box, which has got three bobbins in it. Again, we have a cutout. Here's the cutout here on your right cutout. And then here's the voltage regulator over on the other end, and in the middle is the current regulator. So it does a lot better job um, saving the generator and keeping it from overcharging. So these are really nice. You can fit these onto a T-type if you want. It's not original, so you won't do it. But they're three bobbins and they're nice. So in 1968, with the MGB, and then a little bit later with the midget, they made a wholesale change, and they went to a completely different unit. So that's the alternator. But first, let me just talk about checking the charging system. If you're running your car and you bring it up to 1500 RPM and turn the headlights on, you should be able to this is with a generator dynamo, not an alternator. You should be able to disconnect the battery. I just did this last week to a guy's TC. Take the terminal off the battery, and the generator should make enough electricity to run the headlights and keep the car running. Okay, that's just a down and dirty test. It's either making enough electricity to operate the car or not. Another test is the ignition warning light. When you turn the key on, the ignition warning light comes on. When you achieve charging, which is up usually around 10, 1200 RPM, the red ignition light should go out. It shouldn't come back on again. But there's all kinds of variations. Maybe it doesn't come on because something's wrong with the wiring or the bulb's burned out. Or maybe it gets brighter and brighter and brighter the faster you go. These are all indicators that there's something wrong. So when there is something wrong with the charging system, the first thing you do is check the generator. Now you can withdraw the wires on the back of this unit, and you can jump between the F terminal, which is not here, because that's part of the case. But if the case is on it, there's the spade terminal that comes out of here. You can jump between the F terminal field and the D terminal dynamo. So you put a jumper wire between these at 1500 RPM and just hold it there for a second and break the connection, and it'll be like the 4th of July. So out of the D terminal here, you're getting maybe 3 volts just by itself, just when the guy's running. But if you feed that 3 volts back into the field, then you get 6 volts, and then that feeds back in as 12 volts and 24 and 48, and you get 100 volts out of this thing. Not for long, but it'll really put out the voltage. The voltage regulator, the control box, is designed to keep that at 14 volts. But you can check the generator or dynamo by jumping between those two leads. Now, what if the wiring's bad? So instead, maybe of taking the wiring off the back of the generator, maybe you just pull the wires off here. Where's my cover here? I don't know if you can read that. No, my light isn't. Oh, there it is. See the AAFDE. So you pull the F wire off, which is brown with green, and you pull the D wire off, which is yellow, and touch those together at 1500 RPM and hold them together for about a second, pull them apart, and pow, you get this great big flashy spark. If you don't get a spark, maybe it's not polarized. Actually, that's probably the first thing you should do, and that is jump between A and F. They're right next to each other on the unit here, and you can jump between those with a screwdriver, a paper clip, a piece of wire. Just do it. Just make it spark. The car doesn't have to be running. Just do it. Just jump between A and F. Now the generator is polarized and will make electricity in conformity to the way that the battery is in the car. Some people switch between positive and negative earth. Sometimes people take the battery out of the car, put it back in later, get it the wrong way around. Anytime the battery's out of the car, anytime the battery comes out of the car and you put it back in, polarize it. It's so easy. You just take this wire here and just spark between these two terminals, and it would go spark, spark. That's it. Now it's polarized. After it's polarized, and you take off that brown with yellow and the yellow, and you put them together, hold them together for about a second, break them apart. It should be great big flashy 100-volt spark. Okay, that lets you know that the generator is okay. If the generator is okay and your system isn't working, it's probably the control box. But you've got to check the generator first. Sometimes you can make adjustments to the control box. There are little tiny screws here at the top. You see this little tiny screw, and then the adjustments on the back. If you try to read the electrical section in the workshop manual about how to do this, you'll simply buy a new one, because it is so complicated and so crazy backwards. But if you put a voltmeter between your fuse box and ground at 1400 RPM, you can adjust the voltage regulator on the back side. You can adjust the voltage regulator and dial it into 14 volts. Beyond that, if that doesn't do anything, get another regulator. The new regulators come and they very often say clean the points. Well, there's points underneath here. It's real hard to see them here. Maybe you can see the one over on this side. The points. Clean that with some 600 sandpaper. Just clean it up, because the units have been made in some distant foreign country, real close to where our gentleman Peter from New Zealand, the place they're made is closer to Peter than to us. And they're supposed to be dry, but who knows how long they've been in a box, and they get corrosion on the points. So just clean those up. That helps out a whole lot. So that's about, for a brief introduction, that's about it. Then in 68, we pick up the alternator. You cannot test the alternator with anything but a voltmeter. You have a voltmeter and your ignition warning light. If the ignition warning light glows, it means the diode pack is faulty on the inside. It still might be charging. It's just not charging as much as it should. So it's time to get it sorted out before another diode goes bad. So the alternator only has two moving parts, one moving part, and that's this guy, the rotor. And the rotor on the alternator, which spins in the middle, is what used to be this. Okay, it's the field. So instead of the field sitting still like in a generator, here the field spins, and it's got all these little tiny points, each of which is a magnet. Then we've got the stator. The stator takes the place of the armature. Okay, and this is hardwired. This has got brushes. So all the electricity that's being made inside the generator has to go through these brushes and has to get out. So there's wear, and there's dirt, and there's a lot of flash. There's a lot of light. There's heat. All this stuff. None of that occurs here. This is the stator. This unit makes alternating electricity. Hence alternator, right? And it's three-phase. That's why there are three wires here. On the back of the alternator, except for 1968, where they put the 4TR control box up on the firewall, but they got rid of that right away. And if anyone's got a 68 and you're going to change the regulator on your alternator, be aware that the new 4TRs don't have the same plug configuration as the original one, so just pay attention. If it doesn't make any sense, call me. But just it's 1968 only. The new units, they've got two of the positions reversed. God knows why. Maybe they changed them later. Anyway, in the back of this, we have a diode pack here. This thing with the three plates and the orange wire attached to it. So that takes the three-phase electricity and puts it into direct current. And then we got the regulator, this little tiny box here, little tiny thing, which did what this guy did on for the generator. So you can see that all this stuff is a whole lot smaller, it's more efficient, it's less expensive to make, and the alternator makes electricity at a much lower RPM than the generator. In the generator, every time this field turns one position out of the brushes, you get a wink, 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 wink. Well, this thing's traveling pretty fast, and all those winks together give you a pulsating direct current. But here we've got we've got all these poles on the inside, all those poles, and all these magnets brushing brushing by it. So instead of wink, 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 it's all but continuous. So except it's alternating current. So those are the two things. The generator is absolutely excellent. We won World War II with generators. You don't need to have an alternator on your TC or your TD. Are they better? Yes, they're better units. Are they original? No. If you want to get the advantage of an alternator that looks like a generator, you can buy the Holden. That's the British electrical company, makes a generator, looks just like this, except with a front and rear plate on it, like it should and everything. But you look down the middle of it, and you go, that's not a generator, that's an alternator. So they've done it so you can sort of cheat and have an alternator on your car. But generators are just fine. They're just fine. Just got to keep your eye on that ignition warning light, and if it ends up glowing, and how would you know if it glowed during the day? It's just a little tiny light, but just be aware of it. And your battery, to run your car down the road
Hey,
is
I got a question quick.
yeah, go ahead.
Regarding alternators,
Yeah,
specifically when you are doing a conversion, there are some inline diodes, especially within the 77 wiring harness, that are related to the alternating current
no,
regulation.
no, they're
Are
not.
those specifically for that?
No, there are two diodes located behind the glove box in like a 77 MGB that have to do with the start circuit in the
Okay,
ignition
so starter and relay.
with the brake warning light. They got nothing to do with the
Okay.
alternator.
Yeah, because I have a loom that has like three or four, so extra looms, they always come in handy when you have get that extra nice color coded correct wire.
Yes, yes. For those of you who want to buy new wire, British Wiring, they're part of Triumph Rescue out of Philadelphia. They've got British Wiring. They've got all the wire ends, all the plugs, everything. And it's expensive, and they sell the wire by the meter. Like this is America. Should be selling it by the foot. Anyway, yeah, old wiring looms. Oh my gosh, nothing quite like those original connectors and everything. But you got to be real careful about splicing wire. And almost everywhere where you have a wire and you're splicing it, if you're doing that, you either want to use really good butt terminals and crimp it really well and put shrink tubing over it, or solder them. And in the case of alternators, wiring connections are critical. So the main power lead is big around as your little finger, right? Comes up from the battery, goes to the bottom of the starter solenoid. Then from there, there's spade terminals and ring terminals, and it goes into the brown circuits and the brown circuits, and the brown's always hot, unfused, and several of those wires end up at the alternator. If there's an erratic connection at the starter solenoid, pow, you lose your alternator. I mean, it'll overcharge. I don't know what happens to it. Something it breaks, and you end up having to rebuild the alternator. So whenever you're dealing with any problem with the generator or alternator, but especially the alternator, start at the battery. Make sure the battery clamps are nice and tight. Go to the starter solenoid. Make sure that that the wires there, especially on the alternators here, especially those that they're tight. Take them take them off the uh, take the wires off the alternator and tighten up the nut that's underneath there and put the wires all back on. Use a new internal star lock washer or something or other. Snug that thing down. Once in a blue moon on a late model MGB, hardly ever happens. The ignition warning light goes out. Everything's fine except it isn't charging because the spade terminal that goes onto the center post, um, most of the alternators, this is an early one. This has only got two
I've had
spades
that
on it.
happen before.
Um,
Particularly once we were driving through New York State in my dad's 73 MGB GT. This thing's nice. It's got overdrive in third and fourth, mint everything. We're driving down the highway and this thing just dies. It's alternator. We're trying to push start the car because we get enough speed. We can jump it usually just RPMs. That's at least something you can do with an alternator that age. Couldn't get it to run, so we basically just took the alternator off and just put a battery on. We put a jumper pack on the battery and we drove home that way because we couldn't get it to charge. We just said, well, we'll jury rig this thing together, redneck style, and it worked. Got us home from Adirondacks to Connecticut. So
oh my gosh. So there is a problem with, and you have to pop in the case of a bad wiring on the back of the alternator, that's into the plug, and you got to pop the plug apart. It's just little barbs in it. Just look at it and figure it out. And you take those things out, and then the crimp, you got to squeeze the crimp on the wires and put it all back together. It works fine. Um,
ours, it wasn't even the crimps were bad. The entire terminal basically melted. It just melted around it. It
right.
was the weirdest
So
thing we've ever had.
so they
We
they
figured out it
melt.
was, yeah, it
They
was the rectifier in the actual alternator popped. We didn't even know it. We've been driving like that for 3 years with it just not working. So
okay.
we've been overjuicing the battery, everything.
So that is a problem. Every now and then, the both systems will overcharge, and
It
the
didn't kill
ignition.
the LEDs though. Didn't kill the LED bulbs or turn signals. So
I
it's
don't.
weird. It should have popped those right there and then because they have a 14
Well,
volt limit.
usually 18 is about as high as that is they'll overcharge, and at that rate, they'll boil the battery dry. So you get an acid smell inside the car. It's odd, but you get this acidic smell, and what's going on? It's not an electrical smell, it's just acid, and that's the acid getting boiled out of the battery. Now, these are pretty rare. Let's see. Yeah, the with 80 amp with a fully charged battery, 80 amp hours, and it only takes about 5 amps to run the car between the fuel pump and the ignition system. No headlights, no turn signals, no heater blower, just about 5 amps. So you can run for, well, what's 5 into 30, 5 into 80, uh, around 15, right? So my math is right, 16, I don't, anyway, you can run for, 10 hours, no problem on a fully charged battery. So that's what some people do sometimes. If their system goes down, you end up you're out in the middle of nowhere. You can't do anything. You have to buy a battery and just put it in and drive on the battery. But anyway, 14 volts. The systems are comprised of the battery, the generator, the control box, and the wiring, or in the case of the alternator, the battery, the wiring, and the alternator. That's it. It has nothing to do with the turn signals or the key switch or nothing. It just has to do with that. And
Hey, John,
yes,
could you go back and review again because my TD charges way overcharges. It'll charge 15 and a half, 16. And what I'd like to do is confirm that as I have a voltmeter on it, and I'm looking from the toward the rear of the car. So the bobbin that's on the left side of that regulator is the regulator bobbin, and the screw behind it, I can turn left and right, watch my voltage, and get it to 14. Is that what you said?
yes,
I'll do it.
yep. Yeah, you don't want to run with too much voltage for too long. Yeah, it's I didn't know about popping the LED bulbs because I'm I'm too old. I don't know very much about LED bulbs, but yeah, sure. Another interesting thing with radios, modern radios, not the old-fashioned tube type, but the more modern radios that you might have in your car, is that they're voltage sensitive too. And once the voltage in the system falls below about 10.5 volts, they don't fade away. They just shut off like your battery drill does. It doesn't get slower. The new ones doesn't get slower, slower, slower. It just stops working. And that's an obviously an indicator too. Um, there's no substitute for checking your fan belt. You should do that anytime you're underneath the bonnet. And you want to grab a hold of the alternator fan, obviously, when the car is not running. Grab a hold of the fan and see if you can turn the alternator fan or the generator fan in an anti-clockwise direction. Counterclockwise is seen from the front. The whole system runs clockwise. So if the generator or alternator can slip clockwise, it's never going to run faster than the engine. So it doesn't matter if it slips clockwise. It only matters if it slips anti-clockwise. And if you can get that alternator fan to move with your thumb, put your thumb on that and move the pulley, it's too loose. So you can have the generator light go out. You can have the alternator light go out. Geez, looks like it's charging everything. It's not because it's the alternator fan, the alternator pulley is slipping on the belt. So keep that in mind. Anytime you're in there doing changing the oil, doing anything, just check it, just see. You know, T types also. There's a problem with the lineup of the fan belt. God knows why they did it this way, but the generator, between the generator and the front engine bearing plate, there's a washer that's supposed to be about an eighth, 3/16 of an inch thick on all the T types. It's gone. Nope, unless you got the most original T type in the world. Someone's changed the generator, put it back in, not paid any attention to that washer, and the rear bracket is bent out of way. And if you stand back and look at the fan belt, you'll see that the water pump and front pulley are in line, but the generator sits a little to the rear. Shouldn't do that. That fan belt's nice and thick. It'll last a long time, but it'll last a lot longer if the fan belt's in line. So anyway,
Hey, John.
that's about it. Yes. Hey, Fred. Hi.
How you doing, John?
Pretty good.
Good to see you. Um, a friend of mine, we were working on his MGB a year or so ago, and he insisted he wanted LED bulbs everywhere under the dash.
Okay.
So we put an LED bulb in for the ignition light, wouldn't charge.
Okay. Yeah.
So we found out you had to have a incandescent bulb for the alternator to work. So you can't change the ignition light to an LED bulb.
Thank you.
Kind of
Thank you.
makes sense because it requires that little bit of draw from that bulb to begin with. It's not
Yeah,
designed to have a low input output thing, so
correct.
This one this is a five, this is a five. Oh my God. Why didn't they just come up with an alternator and leave it alone, right? But every 2 years they changed it. So this is type one termination that has two plugs, and then they went to type two termination, which has one plug. Lucas is always just crazy. Anyway, one of these, this guy here feeds the orange wire, which comes up to the field diodes. And the field diodes, it's true that electricity gets into the field, which is the rotor, and excites the rotor, and then the whole thing kicks in and starts working. A lot of MGBs don't even need a working ignition light. A lot of them don't, but maybe it's a newer alternator that does. I don't know. But anyway, thank you very much. Another thing about bulbs, since bulbs have come up here a couple of times tonight, is you cannot use an LED bulb on a TR6 turn signal. It only works in one direction. So I had a customer
Actually,
who
I got a
was
question about that
just
because some people
irate.
have said when you change the flash indicator, the turn indicators,
Yes,
the flasher module, you change it to a digital one. Like just there's no analog to it.
right,
Usually you can get away with using an LED because it requires so little input to make the flash to begin with. But
right.
some people also say that if you get the polarity wrong on the bulb or your wiring is wrong, you'll blow the bulb and you could actually blow the flasher at the same time. I don't understand why, but sort of makes sense, right?
This has got diodes in it.
Yeah, diodes are one direction only.
So yeah, so they're marked those and if you're using if you're using a flasher unit, a transistorized flasher unit on a positive earth car, you've got to get the correct unit, which has got an extra little wire that sticks out of it because it won't work otherwise. There is no prohibition at all to changing your positive earth car to negative earth. There's nothing magic about positive earth. It was just the convention at the time. Lucas ran a negative earth until 1932. Then they went positive earth. Then in 1968, to make it common with the rest of the world, they went back to negative earth.
They came one with the uh, conformity.
Now there is one thing to say about LEDs is the newer LEDs are universal. They'll work positive earth or in negative earth, but you have to buy the right ones depending on your application. Now, if you buy the newer ones that are generic, they'll work in either way. But the older ones, they only work in one direction.
Thanks.
John, if
Yes.
I agree with you, there's no, you don't lose originality by flashing the generator the other way,
Nope. No,
making
unless
everything.
unless someone comes and looks to see which terminal is going to ground. And if you're like if you're playing the game and you got an absolutely original 1950 TD, and you're claiming it's original and you got it hooked up negative ground, I mean, dude, you're cheating.
Yeah.
No,
Well, I understand that, but I'm basically lazy and my car remains positive ground and I can't come up with any reason to change it. Because
two reasons. One, if anyone else drives the car, leaves the lights on, someone else comes by and says, "Oh, here, we'll jump it." You jump it backwards. You might wreck the generator or the control box. Probably not. It'll just start working the other way. In other words,
Yeah, basically you flash it, reverse it again,
yep.
and it could still blow up the whole system. Yeah,
But
we know
the
the pain with the TC.
uh, the the battery will charge up backwards. No problem.
yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
But I mean,
So
it's
and the other one is if you've got any kind of modern equipment in your car, I mean, you got something with a power plug on it, and it's just you just got to be really careful. That's all. You can have the power plug hooked up, but if the case of the power plug touches something that's on the chassis, you get a dead short. So there's lots of sparks and a little bit of smoke. So that's all.
There is something now. There's a product now. I can't remember the exact name, but it's a little box you add on behind the radio that when your power supply switches, this is specifically for older cars that have a common switch issue like MGs, where you can jump it wrong and it changes your polarity.
So
Basically, it will reverse the polarity regardless of what it is for your unit.
so those are
So if your car switches from positive to negative, it'll swap it for you so it doesn't blow your radio.
originally, those were voltage inverters. They called them a voltage inverter, and they had a vibrator in them and a transformer, and it pushed out 24 volts positive, so that you could run the 24 volts positive to your radio. Your radio is grounded at 12 volts positive, so the difference between those two positives is 12 volts, and the radio worked just fine. So it didn't invert anything; it just put out 24 volts. So, and God knows that there's somebody's figured out a way to put it in so you don't have to decide it, figure it out, but it must have transistors in it or some logic circuit or something or other. Now, if it does it by
Their
itself.
transistor radios be like,
So anyway, now let me just open it up for more questions about charging and generators and control boxes and batteries and associated wiring. When we're done with
John,
that, we'll get over to our chat section.
John, one last
Yeah.
question about
Oh, yeah.
alternators.
Yeah.
The late model alternators on like the 80 MGB LE seems to only have two wires, two terminals. One's like really huge, the other one's a little bit smaller.
Mm-hmm.
You can put an earlier connector on there, but you have to like grind down that big fat terminal. It's like a half an inch wide.
It's a Lucar. It's a
Yeah, it's a
Lucar
Lucar, yeah,
terminal. It's a half an inch wide. Yeah,
but
you
it's
can't.
big.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, that's where all the charging happens.
Yeah.
So the alternators were, oh my gosh, they were started off, it was so convoluted, the wiring on them and everything. And so when I sent out my constant contact, I could not come up with all the pictures I wanted. So I put in those crummy little pictures of the regulators, and there's 2 wire, 3 wire, and 4 wire regulators. So the more wires, the more sensing that they do. The better the voltage is, the more stable the voltage is coming out of the alternator. So they sensed the voltage, of course, at the output, but they also had another wire that went from the starter solenoid up to the back of the alternator, and it was just a sensing lead. And you've got to take those things, you've got to take the back cover off and look at it to see how in the world they're wired to see what's going on. Sometimes you need that sensing lead. If it requires a sensing lead and you don't have it, it won't charge. It will not charge. But you can cheat and just jump between the the two terminals on the back of the alternator too. Um, but that really wide Lucar connector that must be available from British Wiring. That's a massive. That's a like massive wire size terminal, and that's the one that the crimps get to corroded, and then you get high resistance, and then you get heat, and then the solder melts or the wire burns up. So yeah.
John,
You're muted, Fred.
one last question about that is they say that if you put a higher output alternator into
Hmm.
your car, you should double up your brown wires to to conduct the extra current if you have lots of accessories and
Yeah,
lights and
yeah. Well, if
now,
you
of course if you convert into LED, you don't need all that current. But a lot of people have all of these high power, halogen bulbs and everything else, so they need lots of current.
so there's the hot setup for a while was the Saturn alternator because all you had to do is take it apart, rotate it 120, it bolts right on, and it makes 100 amps. 100 amps. I mean, oh my gosh. if your battery was flat dead, I mean, you jumped it and then pulled the jumper leads off a flat battery, and that alternator said, "Hey, look, there's someplace to send the electricity," and they were trying to send 100 amps down those wires. Yeah, everything would get real warm, real warm, for sure.
Actual toaster wires.
What's that?
Your wiring would become toaster wires. You might
Yeah,
as well just
toaster
put the
wiring.
toast on it, and you'll have your
Absolutely.
breakfast ready.
Yep.
You just gotta have the tea ready too.
And yeah, John, I've been running a Saturn alternator for years, never changed the wiring, but because they had, you got stereo and
Yeah.
meter blower going, running lights and all that. But now I've got all halogen lights.
LED
Not a
lights.
halogen, I'm sorry, LED lights.
LEDs. Yeah.
And the only thing I had to do was put a 5-pin relay so my cruise control will work. But now I know what my headlights are supposed to look like at night.
Right.
It's
Yep.
been great. My 71, I have the original alternator on it. It's still, trouble is when you start the car, the light doesn't go out until you rev it up a little bit, and then it's fine. But I don't drive it as much, but I'd like to keep it original if I could. It's as long as it keeps going.
Well, those Saturn alternators were the hot setup for a while, but can you even find them anymore? Are there any school teachers left driving Saturns?
Well, I go to AutoZone and they order it,
Okay.
and it's a lifetime warranty from AutoZone. So in fact, I had to change it once, but yeah, lifetime, no questions. But they do have to order it. Now, one time, I my alternator went out. I was in Kansas City at a car show, and Steve sold me a alternator off of a midget. It was okay. It worked. It's not like 35 amps. So I'm driving at night, going down the highway. It's chilly. I got the blower on, got the radio on, I got the running lights on, and in the cruise. And I go to pass a truck. I put on the turn signal, and the cruise shuts off. It was like that's no more. I give up. So now I keep that as a spare.
Yep. The voltage drop. Yep.
Good evening, John.
Hey,
Hey,
Tom, how you
Gunderson.
doing? As soon as Tom's done, I got to get back into Alan. Alan wanted to get in here too, but
Okay, go ahead.
Alan, you there?
Yeah, right. I I was just wondering on the okay I think it's the 18 ACRs. They
Mhm.
have two large and one small terminal.
Yes.
And okay, the two large terminals are connected together.
Sometimes,
Okay.
sometimes they're isolated. So that's from the outside in, it's either narrow, wide, wide,
Yeah.
or narrow, extra wide, narrow. So in the case of the narrow, wide, wide, in the case of both of them, the center spade is always the output. The center is
Yeah.
always the output, and the one on the outside of the unit is always the yellow with brown with yellow, which is the ignition warning light. And then the third one towards the middle sometimes is used, sometimes it isn't. It depends on the regulator that's installed. So sometimes it's important it's hooked up, sometimes it's not. But that's also hooked to the battery, either from the solenoid, or well, no, from the solenoid. That would be where it would come from. So.
Okay.
But sometimes they're common, sometimes they're not. There was a UBB, that was the Lucas part number. UBB 110, 111, 112, and there's a whole bunch of them. And what I found most fascinating was taking the 68 alternator, which has only got 2 pins, 3 pins on the back of it. 4. There's a ground. Yeah, because on the real early, like the UBB 110, one of those spades was ground. Well, if you hooked up brown wire to it, you got a dead short. So yeah, I don't know why they just couldn't keep those things consistent. They only used them 12 years, and there's got to be 6 different varieties of them. I don't even know how many varieties there are, but oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Tom Gunderson, you wanted to have something.
Yeah. 57 MGA. If you're servicing or replacing your generator, positive ground, is it necessary to repolarize?
Always, anytime you get the generator out, the battery out, anytime you've done anything, it's so simple because you got screw terminals on yours probably. Just take a
Yeah, I
screwdriver,
do.
just take a screwdriver and flash between A and F. That's it. It's polarized. It's done.
And
There's
touch F. What A and F?
A and F. They're right next to each other on the
Okay.
see,
Excellent. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
A and F, right
All right.
next to each other. You could jump
Yeah.
A1 to F if you wanted, but they're not. It's not easy. I mean, you just use I just use a screwdriver, and
Yeah, exactly.
I make it spark twice. You only have to have it spark once, but I do it double, just to make sure.
Okay. Thank you for your help over earlier this week. Thank
Oh,
you very
absolutely.
much.
Yep, you're very welcome.
Hey,
Quick,
John.
I
More,
just got a quick question here.
sure.
This is a pertinent issue I've been dealing with for a while now. Wiring a new regulator on a 47 TC right-hand drive. The loom we have is frayed, chewed, spliced, pretty much bleached white from the age and, mice. Every single one of the diagrams we find online, they don't match. None of the wiring is even matchable. And it's basically everything's original, even all the dash, everything. It's original. It's got the burl wood, the real wood. It's got
So
the good X-Pag, but it cranks when you do the actual turn with the crank, but that's about it.
okay, so you're going to have to identify each individual wire.
Hmm.
And you're going to have to do that by experimentation. So don't use a meter. Throw the meter away. You want just a cheap ass Napa $6 test light. It looks like an ice pick with an alligator clip on the end, right? And when you look at your wiring diagram, you'll see that there are wires that come from the starter motor, switch up. Those are the A wires, and
This is the one that had the actual pull lever for the
yeah,
starter too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
someone jury rigged a starter solenoid where you turn the key
But
now.
there's the starter switch on the starter motor. The same terminal that receives the heavy cable from the battery also has brown wire. They used to be brown. The go from there, and you're just going to have to use a wiring diagram and just test each wire. Oh my gosh, a testimony to having marked them when they came off. But if you're here now, you just use that information, that technique for later. So
Let's just say some of them were marked with white tape and Sharpie, and the Sharpie did not exactly stay through the test of time.
yeah, yeah, yep, yeah. I've been there. I know. It's laborious. It just takes
Moisture
a
and
while.
Sharpie oil base does not mix.
It's But doing it that way, step by step by step, is going to be easier than putting a new wiring loom in the car, which
Although
is,
I
I
think
mean,
probably painting the tape with an actual like an actual acrylic or oil-based paint so you match the color code on the wire.
well, that's
Even if it's like a
interesting.
dotted, like
Yeah,
just marked paint, or actually just put real paint on it that doesn't fade over time like actual oil paint.
yeah.
My
You
dad's an
could
artist,
you
so
could
there's a plenty enough supply of that.
hit the model shop and buy some tester brown and tester black and red and oh my gosh, yeah. There's no red
Use
wires on the
fingernail polish.
control box. What's that, Mark?
Use fingernail polish.
That's good. Okay, that's
That
cool.
works too, but when you got mice, yeah, they'll chew on it.
Well, hey, yeah. Anyway, so take your time. Yep. Oh my
Hey,
gosh.
John.
Hey, at least a cloth wrap and not rubber.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fred.
John, an interesting situation I ran into with an aftermarket Lucas lookalike alternator. I think came from British Parts Northwest or whatever. They go for like $100,
Right.
something like that. Well, the grounding screw that goes to the diode pack was loose, so wasn't getting ground. But once I tightened up that nut, it worked just fine.
Yep.
So something to check if you buy an aftermarket alternator. Make sure those nuts are
Take the
tight.
back off and make sure everything's tight. If the regulator isn't grounded, so
Yeah, well-
sometimes the regulator
Yeah.
needs to be grounded.
So
So
this diode pack screw actually goes through. It goes
Yeah.
to the outside of the body, so it's easy to get to.
right there,
Yeah, that one.
that 1032 nut. Yep. Hey, I didn't even know this is Joel Gingspan has used something on here that I've never seen before, and that is he's got his hand up. I didn't. Where is that on the keyboard? I've never seen that. Done 114 zooms. Nobody's ever raised their hand.
It's under the
That's what I
reactions.
want to find out.
So
At the
Joel,
bottom of your
Reactions, and it will be a button system.
yeah, I'm over on Joel here. Oh, now Tony's got his hand raised too, but Joel had his hand up first.
Well, John, I actually got you answered the question also, but it's on the very bottom of your Zoom bar in the middle to the right of the chat, there's a raise hand. And if you click the little raise hand,
Okay,
It'll
because
be under a box that says reactions or react with a heart shape.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, okay, yeah, all right. Well, hey, this another little. Mostly it works if people just break in, but then sometimes we get 2 or 3 people at once. But I try to keep track. So anyway, Henry's
Learning
got
something
his
new
hand
every day.
raised.
All right, I gotta go, guys.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Oh,
And on my MGTD, the ignition light comes on intermittently. Sometimes when I turn the key on, the ignition light comes on. Sometimes it does not. And then sometimes when I'm cruising along, the ignition light comes on, and sometimes it does not. Been like that for 2 years. The car's running fine. And I'm wondering if I should just relax and let it do what it wants to do, or if there's something wrong.
well, it's an indicator that something ain't right. So the first thing to do is to you can't reach up behind there very easily, but you can unscrew the lens and take that 987 bulb out of there, and I don't know, take some sandpaper to the bottom of the bulb and put the bulb back in and see if that does it, because you always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first, but it's an erratic connection. I don't know why it's coming on when you're driving. That's yet another problem. But not coming on when the key is turned means that it's not making contact, in there. But the fact that it works most of the time apparently means it is making contact. So it's either a loose wire someplace or it's a bulb. So start with a bulb.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And now Henry's got his hand. All right.
Yeah. Hey, John, battery shutoff switch. My understanding is if you have your car running and you turn the car off with a battery shutoff switch, you can damage your alternator or generator.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
And
Yes.
so a battery cutoff switch is different than a kill switch, because I think a kill switch not only shuts off the battery, but it also shuts off the ignition.
Correct.
So that your engine doesn't keep running without the battery, which will damage your alternator generator. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. The big Heelys had a switch in the back in the trunk, in the boot, that when you turned it, it did 2 things. It disconnected the battery from ground, and it also grounded the distributor side of the coil, as though the points were closed all the time, therefore no spark. And
Yes.
that killed it. But the only reason you've got a battery cutoff switch in your 68 through 80 MGB is for theft. So yeah,
Yes.
but if you turn that off, it not always, but more often than not, that's why loose connections are so critical, 68 through 80. The connections at the battery, the connections at the starter solenoid, and the connections at the back of the starter. Because any of those that get interrupted or get high resistance will cause I don't know what happens. I don't know exactly what happens. Maybe it tries to overcharge and blows itself up. That's a amateurs response, but something happens and they go bad. So yeah, don't never run an alternated MG without the battery connected, which is just the opposite of what I told you on testing for a generator.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And the indicator light really is indicating a balance between the battery and your charging source, because
exactly.
that bulb will only light if there's a difference of a voltage or two. You know, if it starts lighting when you're driving, it means that your generator may be doing too much or too little voltage versus your battery, or vice versa.
Yes.
The current flows back and forth through that filament. That's why you can't use an LED for your indicator light, because it's a diode. It only goes one direction. So, you know, the LED or the indicator light is not an idiot light. It has a lot of information there. And if you, it's not something that just turns on and then you got to take your car in to get serviced. And it's really, yeah, if something's lit or it's not reacting right, there's something out of balance. And so you need and another thing that helps is having a voltmeter to see if the voltage is in range of what it should be. Because if it's really low or real on the high side, again, that indicates that your system's out of balance somewhere, and you got to figure out what the problem is. But you know, so the voltage meter can be really valuable to give you additional information on what your indicator light is seeming to indicate.
Yes, absolutely. So that voltmeter should, no matter what, that voltmeter, except for when you're sitting still, but once you exceed 1200 RPM or something, 1200 RPM, it should be sitting at 14 volts
Yeah, yeah,
in all of our cars.
yeah. Thanks, John.
Thank you. So Skip raised his hand.
Yeah, there are bicolored LEDs that could be used.
You're just unmuted yourself. I mean, no, you just muted yourself. I mean, I can't hear you. There we go.
Okay. There we go. There are bicolor LEDs that could be used in there. You brought up the problem that if it went high or low one way, it wouldn't work, but they're bicolored, red and green. So you can stick that in there.
Thank you. I didn't know that at all. Didn't know that. Thanks.
I have an interesting story about Austin Healey 3000. Somebody I know was bringing his two daughters up from Florida. All of a sudden, he had a slight glow, like he wasn't getting a full charge, and he really got kind of worried. So they stopped to get something to eat. He said, I'll stay in the car, keep it running. They'd go in and get him some fast food. And most of the day, he drove like that until a cloud went over the sun and the light went out. He was getting the reflection from the sun. He was so embarrassed. But
Very
so you
interesting.
can if that happens, just put your hand over it and see if the light goes out.
Yeah, well, those indicator bulbs are like on a TD. It's a white light that's funneled right in this. The diameter of that thing is about that of a pencil lead. It's like, and then they get big and red. Those are nice, but then 77 through 80, it's a bulb and it's in a housing, and sometimes it isn't so easy to see it glowing. Voltmeter's nice. I don't say much about TRs, but that voltmeter in the TR6 is nice. So Henry, you got your hand up. Henry had his hand up. But if he doesn't say anything, I'm going to go over to Bill Weekly because he had his hand up.
Henry waved at you.
Hi, John.
Okay.
This is Bill. Hey, I have a 69 MGC with an alternator, of course. And when I'm driving, sometimes the charge indicator light glows just a little bit. And I've hooked up a voltmeter and I've watched it. It seems to be charging just fine, but the light glows a little bit. Doesn't do it all the time. Uh, doesn't seem to hurt anything, but something's not quite right.
So again, battery connections at the starter solenoid, and then you've got you've got nine diodes on this pack here, and you can separate this pack, the alternator. You can separate that out of your alternator and test each one of those diodes individually. So since there's nine diodes, there's 18 tests because you got to test them in each way. And then the other thing is that there's a screw which holds the regulator tight. And man, I'd back that off and tighten it back up again. That especially when it's erratic like that. But the problem probably lies in one of those two things, and it has to do with the connections. So
There's lots of shops out there that'll test your alternator for free. So you can just take it in there and have them test it.
Yeah, but the meter always reads bad, right? So it's like those little like in Sears Automotive, when you take your battery, your completely discharged battery, flat dead, brand new, perfectly good battery, just empty. It's just empty. They put it on their meter and it read bad. They say, "Oh, you need another battery." It's like, no, I don't. I just need to have it filled up. Just have to have it charged. Anyway, yeah, hey, so. All
Hey,
right,
Judd,
so
you created a monster.
yeah, hey, Judd, what's up? You got your hand up.
Well, I know, and so's everybody else on the thing. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing. Anyway, just for the T-types, I got a little bitty digital. It's actually probably for some kind of electronic hobbyist or something, voltmeter. A tiny little rectangular thing, and took the leads and put sort of banana plug type things that would fit into the outlets on the dash of the TD. And when I'm curious, I can plug that in and watch my voltage as I drive along. Now, I don't think any of the other cars, they're way too modern to be able to do something simple like that. But for the T series that had the old, what did you call that? Trouble light that would plug in, that nobody has anymore. You can use that outlet as a place to check your voltage as you're driving along.
Sure. Yep. Yep, you could, how you're the guy that won't switch over to negative earth, and you've got a digital voltmeter in your car.
Yeah, I just hooked it up
That's a conflict of technology.
That's me. I've always been conflicted.
Okay.
Hey,
We're
easy.
driving up to the icy place on Friday. I'll be leading the group with no top. It's
Hey.
supposed to get up to 34.
Hey.
But he does have electric underwear for that trip, so he's not that old fashioned. And thanks for showing my card, Judd.
Nice going, Bob.
Positive or negative underwear?
Yeah.
It's negative ground, so you have to hook the wire up backwards.
Well, it depends if they're white or black, right? Now we're way down this one. So let's see. Judd's got his hand up, but then how can I Judd's got his hand up somehow. Pat Garrity's. Oh, I see what's going on. I just yep. Anyway, Gene Cooper's up on first. Who's on first? Gene's on first.
Good evening, everybody, and hello, John. I just wanted to make a couple of comments on some stuff people are talking about. Even red, green LEDs, I don't know if they will pass enough current to run the field. So you do, in fact, want an incandescent bulb there. Change all your other lights to LEDs. That's all well and good and great, but I don't think that you'll be happy or consistent otherwise. I like the idea about a voltmeter that you monitor the voltage of the battery and you can see if it's charging. You want to go really nuts and put a couple of points in so you can hook your meter up and see the difference on that field circuit. But the thing about the brown wire, it's real easy. Ask Mr. Google to tell you how much current can I carry on this size wire. So either 10 or 12 multi-strand wire, brown, of course. And if you want to use both, I have a late model MGB that I change alternators in most other people's cars. Mine seem to always keep running. But some people say add a second brown wire. And when you have a 43 amp alternator, which most of the late 18 ARCs are, that'll handle 30 amps pretty regularly. And if you're driving down the road using 5 amps, the only time you're going to need 2 brown wires is when that battery is in flat, dead flat, and you're trying to charge it. And the alternator will. And like John says, the generator will also for a while. And then it gives up. So ask Mr. Google about that. And then the comment about the electric underwear, positive or negative ground, we go both ways here in Minnesota. We don't judge.
All right. Okay. All right. Pat Garrity.
John, I had to dig in the archives and
Oh, what's
I want
this?
to show you a genuine Lucas alternator tester that I got out of the old Lucas warehouse in Chicago.
Oh, look
I
at this.
special ordered it. And it's really nothing more than a voltmeter, but, you know, a dumb mechanic like me at the time wasn't very good with the voltmeter. So this made testing it easy, you know.
Very cool.
Three lights that came on, bad, working okay, or working too well.
Okay. Speaking of bad mechanics, I talked to a guy today. He says, well, I took my car in the shop to have the front wheel bearings changed, and they ran the 4 bolts off the hub that hold the rotor on. And he said, apparently the bolts all fell in the back there. I mean, what are we going to do next? And I said, well, you know, you gotta take the nut off that holds the hub on, you know? So anyway, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's very
And
cool.
one other thing I wanted to add, you know, a quick and simple alternator test that I used to do when I had my shop. Cars would come in and people would say I had to jump start it or whatever. And I would just take my pocket screwdriver out with the car running and hold it at the tip of the alternator and see if there's a magnetic field there. And if there wasn't, I'd write them up for a new alternator.
Interesting.
You know, quick
Interesting.
and easy test without any special tools.
Very cool. If you got the back of the alternator off, you can full field it too, and
Right.
and see if it'll put out those 30 or 40 amps. So yeah, Pat, thank you very much. Steve Shupak, you're up next.
Yeah, John, super stupid question for you. I was walking my dog the other day, and the guy had his garage door open. He had a 59 MGA, so I went up to see him to try to get him to join our local club, like you encouraged us to do.
Yeah.
And long story short, went over on the weekend trying to get the car started to go for a little drive, not going. Um, I don't know how to look and see if my 71 MGB's got negative earth written all over it with all kinds of stickers. How do you tell if a 59 is positive earth or negative earth?
Go back to go back to
And
the battery, take the
right,
cover off, and just take a look and see which cable's hooked to which side of the battery.
yeah, well, it looks like looks like it's grounded. The chassis is grounded to negative. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's
and then
negative. That would be real common.
the fuel pump wouldn't tick over.
Well, yeah, but maybe that's because it's been sitting there for 18 years. So you can you can take your fist or some a long screwdriver or something. It's right there. It's really
Yeah, it's right
handy.
by the battery.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's real handy. Just with a key on, just tap it. As long as it's got in a mechanical
yeah, it's an
electrical
S.
pump,
Yeah,
not
they
not
got
a
the S.
transistorized one. That'll jar the points and it'll start to work.
Okay. We'll try tapping on it again. So the key's got to be on, and then it's got the pull switch for the starter.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Okay.
but you want to you just take the end of your screwdriver, not the metal, not the blade end, but the
Yeah, the
handle end.
plastic end.
Yeah, somebody just wrap. You can hit that. Don't hit it on the end where the plastic is, but just the solenoid part of it. You can wrap it pretty hard, jar it. It'll very often just start going tick 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 tick. Just
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. Yeah, we weren't getting any tick tick tick. I'm like, yeah, we're no tick 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 tick, no fuel.
Yep, it's got a
So,
tick.
okay, we'll try that again. Thanks.
Hey, you're very welcome. So, Tony Rosello, you're up next. But you got to unmute yourself by depressing the space bar. There we go.
All right. I have a 55 TF 1500. I installed a alternator generator conversion from, as was mentioned, for British Parts Northwest. And I happened to had a problem with it. One of the diodes went bad. So I took it apart and I found the part number for the diode. I installed that and I put it back together and I got a spark. So I took it to a generator guy and I said, could you check this out? He says the diodes are fine. It'll put out 45 amps, but he said that I had a short and I'm assuming for the rectifier. So the question is, I'm a little leery about putting that back in the car. It's sitting
Yes.
on a shelf.
Well, it's interesting that from about probably 1972 onwards on an MGB, if you had the battery disconnected, everything's off, you touch it, you get a spark, a single spark.
Yeah.
And you go, oh shit, and you pull it off and you test and test and test. And finally it's like, well, I can't find out what's wrong. And there's nothing continuous. There's no continuity. But as soon as you touch it, and it has to do with the alternator. It's a single spark that you get. I can't
Right.
tell you on those. I don't know anything about those, but it's when you go to hook them up, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? But it's normal.
It is.
So I don't know if that's what's going on with yours or not.
Well, I was wondering if I should take it back to the guy and ask him to double check to see where a short is in that. Because if I plug that in and I try to turn will I destroy something?
Well, if you got a short, that you've got 80 amp hours of electricity in that battery, and that's an enormous amount of energy.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
if something shorts, it'll burn up wiring. It's like I was talking about this control box and fiddling around with the cutouts. I've got a friend here in Grand Rapids who 50 years ago had a Healy, and he took the cover off, and isn't that fascinating? And he's poking around and he pushed down on this one and it locked tight. He couldn't get it loose with his fingers. And it didn't seem to hurt anything. And he walked inside. Apparently, it was lunchtime or something or other. And when he looked back outside, all the smoke was being let out of his wiring. So yeah, it burned up his generator and the wiring and everything. So yeah, I'd take it to your alternator guy. But that is a point that on the late model MGBs, when you go to hook them up, you get just a little bit of a spark. Just that's what happens to begin with, and then there's nothing else going on. It must be the there's all these diodes and stuff inside the regulator. I don't know even how to explain it any further than
It may
that.
be retaining some magnetism in the field, and it just
Maybe.
when you ground it, it sparks.
Maybe.
Yeah, it
Don't
did.
know.
Yeah, it sparked that one time. I just don't know if it sparked the second time. I haven't tried that. I was scared to put it back in the car.
Fair enough.
Start the key.
Fair enough.
So one of the things you can do for any of these cars, if you're afraid of having a fire or whatever, you can put like a 30 amp breaker, so automatic breaker in your brown line, and if it has any sort of draw on it, it'll open up at 30 amps, and then you won't burn up your wires.
Oh, that's an idea. Yeah. Like a temporary breaker in the line.
Yeah.
Is there a
Okay.
condenser in there anywhere?
There is a condenser on the late models. So the late model MGB 77 through 80 had a condenser on the coil, on the positive side of the coil, on the fuel pump, and on the output in the inside the generator, that inside the alternator. There's not one here. Here's the hole for it right here,
Mm-hmm.
right
I
there.
think, yeah, all right, yeah.
And it gets rid of the zzz that you might get out of an alternator. You don't get much of a zizz. But you know, I mean, ever since Rush Limbaugh died, who listens to AM radio? So that's the only thing that they were going for, was reducing the zizz that you might get on an AM radio. That's
What I was thinking,
Radio suppression. It
yeah.
showed up.
yeah. What I was thinking is, if there's a condenser there, can't a condenser store a charge?
Yes.
Would that not account for that initial spark?
Well, I can't believe you'd see the spark because the condenser is so tiny, but sure, anything's, yeah, sure.
Huh?
That's the
Thought-
best explanation I've heard of. Yep. Thank you.
Oh, well, for very little.
So Wayne's got his hand up. Here I 114 Zooms, and I never saw that hand until the young guy was on there with it. Anyway, Wayne, what's up?
I've got a 70 MG TD, excuse me, MG GT.
Okay.
And Saturday we're talking to the guys about the problem of trying to jump the car when the battery was low or not working right. And we talked about putting some type of a wire up inside the engine compartment from the starter relay so you could provide 12 volts at that point to get the engine running. Has anybody done something like that?
There was a commercial piece available made by a guy named Caron, Caron, the Caron connection. And it was a cable like this big that came up from the starter solenoid up to a lug on the firewall. But whenever you jump the car, you take the risk of ruining the alternator. So you can trickle charge. I mean, you can a couple amp charge. You can do that all day. But if you're putting on grippers, and you're jumping the car, you run the risk of ruining the alternator, no matter whether you're going right back to the battery or whether you've got another cable out there. But you could, if you isolate the cable, you could certainly do that up front, but man, that is so friggin' dangerous. Something falls on it, you're working down there, you swing a wrench against, that's a lot of, it's a lot of energy available. You can get in a lot of trouble. And then I would instead say, well, find out what the problem is, because your car shouldn't be going dead. You can trickle charge the car from the fuse box. Fuse box is just fine. If you get like a battery tender or a little tiny charging unit, you can put it to the brown wires. If you want to be super safe, put it to the purple side of the fuse box, because then it's got to go through the fuse to get to the brown wires. But you can hook up your car like that and just leave a battery tender right on the fuse box. But jumping the car is a bad idea. But if you have to, you have to, but
I was going through the effort of trying to get rid of that trouble light blinking off and on and staying on, like the guys I was talking about earlier. I had the same problem, and my my alternator guy said I have a bad ground someplace, a loose connection.
Loose connection.
And I went through and found a bunch of loose connections, and but I haven't had a chance to check the car because I killed the battery messing around with it.
Okay. Yeah, it's not a bad ground. We usually don't have problems with bad grounds on the alternator. Other things got bad grounds, but the alternator doesn't. But you do have that power connection, and especially on a 1970, you've got on the starter solenoid. Undo the nut that holds the main cable. Pull the main cable off. Pull the couple of spades off. and ring terminals or something or other, tighten up the nut underneath there. That's a 13 millimeter wrench that'll fit it, whether it's metric or 5/16 British. And tighten up the nut underneath there, put all the other cables back on, tighten that up. That's almost always where the problem lies.
But make sure you disconnect the battery first
Or
before
be
fooling with
careful.
those wires.
Or be careful.
Or better safe than sorry.
Or be careful. That's why you don't put the car on jack stands and leave it in gear. Because if you're down at the starter motor and it's in gear and you got a wrench down there and you're fiddling around, it's difficult, but you can, I have, touch the operational wire down there, the white with red. And well, no, 1970 be white with brown. And oh yeah, the starter motor engages and it'll leap right off those jack stands. So yeah, yeah. Better to disconnect it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Better to
Thank you.
disconnect the battery. Yep. Yep.
So
Thank you.
John, just to clarify, the danger of jump starting to damage an alternator, that's because of a poor connection you might have?
I don't know. I just know that in my experience with MGs, if you jump the car, it'll often result in a bad alternator. I don't know why that happens. I just know it does.
So I charge my MGA battery by connecting the charger to the hot side of the starter switch and the ground.
Yeah, or it's easy. That's sure that works there, or up at the fuse box.
Yeah,
Yep.
but it's got a big clamp and there's a big
Yeah.
nut there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's just fine. That's just fine. That's not jumping it. That's just charging.
No. I'm just charging the battery. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing about checking your voltage, having a voltmeter on your car. They now sell a little, I guess, LED. It goes in your power port or your cigar lighter. They used to call them a cigar lighter. So it also has a USB port on it, typically for charging your phone or whatever. So if you have a cigar lighter, the earlier cars, you'd have to add your auxiliary port, but you can put one of those on there and it's an instant voltmeter.
Sure. That's handy. Thank you. Yep. MGs have cigarette lighters. Jags have cigar lighters. Same. Skip will attest to this. They have same part, both packaged up by Hamro Automotive Corporation, both carrying HAC part numbers. Same thing. The MG one's labeled as a cigarette lighter, and that was $9, and the cigar lighter for the Jag was 21. So, yeah, same part. Yeah. Wayne, you still have your hand up. Do you mean to or not? Nope, he doesn't. All right. So we have played this out and it's 9 o'clock and we've had lots and lots and lots of discussion about this. And now I want to see if I can get to, oh my gosh, I want to get to messages here. So help me out here just a minute. I want to see if I can get over to the chat section. And the chat section is really huge. Why can't I'm
There's actually not a whole lot of questions today.
Good.
It's a lot of, the downloads and stuff like that. So,
okay? All right.
And we've
Most
also,
of the questions have been answered.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Polarizing it. The floor. Looking forward to seeing you at Glenn's next month. Good. And here's somebody who should have been on last time. Maybe they were. To get people to come over to the Sun Coast, to the Indian River, St. Lucie and Marty counties. So anyway, Tony's on here. They've got the birthday party. I'm having a really hard time reading the chat, and I'm not sure why. There we go. Maybe it had to do with sign me up for the technical book. Steve Shupak, I thought you already got one. Let's see. Richard
You mean the big
Caldwell.
tech book,
Okay.
the big yellow book?
Yeah,
Oh,
big and yellow with spiral binding.
oh,
Like
that
it's
one.
like it's important, like it's mega important. I've
Oh,
already
it's
got,
huge.
and you and don't forget you got to autograph every piece of paper that goes out
Yeah, right.
because
Well,
that's what adds the value as a
so
collector's item.
there are a couple of them on eBay right now.
What was the last year you published it? Somewhere around 2004?
I would think so, somewhere around there, because we used to do it for all the technical seminars. You know, here Gene Cooper says the biggest wiring problem by far is the DPO. Yep, absolutely. Um, we've got a link to the manual downloads. Andrew's asking that. Yeah, okay. Well, um, battery jumper. Okay. Anyway, there's I'm having just a hard time using LED bulbs. We talked about that. Having the spares a good place to get them. Um, oh, and here's Pat Garrett. I said Skip. I meant Pat. Pat can attest to the fact that the cigarette and cigar lighters are the same ones. Um, and Ben Andrews, what goes wrong with the three bobbin regulator? They burn out almost always. It's the heavy duty connections that burn out. Can you fry them somehow? Yes, you can overcharge them. Is there a way to bench test them? Yes. I just took my bench tester down to South Haven last week, and we worked on a guy's TC, and I've got a model train transformer. Now, it doesn't give a smooth 12 volts. It's a vibrating 10 volts, but or a vibrating DC current. So it's not pulsy, but it just sort of, and it's not smooth. But I've got a voltmeter, and I can turn the dial on this and watch when the points close when those bobbins operate. So I use a model train transformer doing that.
Cool.
And I also use that for the regulators on the inside of the alternator. These guys, because at 14 volts you lose the ground. So at 14 volts the ground opens and the field no longer charges. So anyway, stop up sometime, Ben. I haven't seen you for a while. Come on. Well, I'm not gonna bring all that stuff to the birthday party, but
You want to swap me?
yeah,
Here?
sure.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to remind me.
All right. Cool.
And there's no place to plug it in there, but
Yeah.
I don't think there is. But anyway, sure. Yep. So okay, let's see what else we got going here. Big thank you. Anyone else? I have a line for rectifier pack for a 68B alternator. Yes. So here, Jim S. You can use you can use the UBB 111. I know they don't use those part numbers anymore, but you can call me tomorrow and I can talk to you a little bit more about regulators. And it just depends on how you wire them and what you do. So for a 68B, you can use the more modern regulator because this is for a 68. No, this is a 69. But again, there's no spade that comes off. This has only got two terminals on it, and almost all the new regulators have got three terminals. You just snip that one terminal off and wire it the way that it was. Anyway, I'm good at doing that. Here we got light bulbs. Marty's got notes on here. I've got a midget that has pulled its ARB mount. What's David Halliday? What's an ARB mount? David, are you still on?
Yeah, just here, John. The anti-roll bar or sway bar.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And I know sometimes when people put heavier duty anti-roll, thicker anti-roll bars on, it's a bit of a risk. Mine just got the standard one on there and it started getting a bang or knocking over speed bumps and things. And I had a look, and it's pulled. There's a plate under the chassis extension that's pulled out of the bottom of the chassis extension, cracked all around.
I think it would involve welding.
Yes, I'm sure.
So what I would do is get like a 5/16 thick piece of stock, right?
Yep.
A rectangular piece of stock. And here, I've got it just a moment here while I do my interesting sketching.
It's not something you've seen before, John?
And like a 5/16, drill it, tap it, and then weld that on to the bottom and move the anti-sway bar down that 5/16 of an inch. That ain't gonna hurt anything. And you're gonna have to do it on both sides. So it isn't on an angle. I mean, that would be other than that, it's cutting a hole in the side of that frame extension out in front and putting a bolt out there. But that frame extension holds the front bumper.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, that's middle of the game.
Game and MG.
So I have just used my mute all button. I didn't mean to cut off David Halliday, but there was some background noise there. So anyway,
That's not something. Sorry, John, it's not something you've seen before, because.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Oh, there goes another tech question. So anyway, no, I'm not sure I've seen that before or not. It's probably loose to start with, or it's rusty, one or the other. But the welding that on would do it.
I was wondering if you could, because the frame extension there is like a top hat shape of the plate underneath. And I was wondering if you could drill out the spot welds and cut out that bottom bit of plate and weld a new bit in there.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, but the idea that I have is faster,
No, fair enough. Yeah.
It's not original.
Okay.
But it would work. You just got to have a thick enough piece of steel that you can thread it so it ain't going to pull out again.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll give it a go.
Yeah. Sergio Sabito,